The crimson skies of Zorath shimmered with an otherworldly glow as the human soldier, Darius, stood on the balcony of the royal palace. The air was thick with the scent of alien flowers that bloomed only under twin suns, their petals radiating a soft lavender hue. Before him stood Princess Leora, her silver hair cascading like liquid moonlight down her back, her eyes reflecting galaxies unknown to mankind. She had just spoken words that felt like both a blessing and a curse. "I wish I could marry someone like you, but my society won't accept." Darius swallowed hard, his heart pounding in rhythm with the distant hum of Zorath energy cores powering the city below. He wasn't sure if it was fear or determination coursing through him, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't let this moment slip away. 4 weeks now, they had shared stolen glances during diplomatic meetings between Earth's United Alliance and the Zorath Empire. Their bond grew stronger each time he escorted her to negotiations, their conversations weaving threads of trust, laughter, and something deeper neither dared name aloud. "Then we'll leave," Darius said suddenly, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing inside him. "We don't need their approval. We can find a place where no one cares about rank, species, or borders." Leora blinked, her delicate brows furrowing. "You speak so easily of running away, Darius. Do you understand what you're asking? You'd abandon your duty to Earth? And I would be exiled from everything I've ever known." He stepped closer, his boots clicking softly against the polished obsidian floor. "I'm not asking you to give up who you are, I'm asking you to choose us. Together, we can build a life somewhere else. Somewhere peaceful." Her lips parted slightly, as though she wanted to argue, but instead, she sighed. "You humans always think solutions are so simple. But love isn't enough when entire civilizations stand against you." "And yet," he countered, reaching out to gently take her hand, "isn't it worth trying?" For a long moment, Leora didn't respond. Instead, she gazed out at the sprawling metropolis of Zorath Prime, its crystalline towers glittering beneath the fading light of the twin suns. Her grip tightened around his fingers, and Darius felt a spark of hope ignite within him. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. 2 days later, under the cover of night, or what passed for night on Zorath, the pair slipped away from the palace. Darius had spent hours planning their escape route, memorizing maps of the planet's surface and coordinating with a smuggler named Vrax, whose ship lay hidden in the outskirts of the capital. Leora, meanwhile, packed only what she deemed essential: a small vial of stardust-infused ink used for ceremonial purposes, a pendant gifted by her late mother, and a data crystal containing centuries of Zorath poetry. As they crept through the labyrinthine corridors of the palace, avoiding guards and surveillance drones, Darius marveled at how natural it all felt. Every step they took together seemed to solidify their resolve. When they finally reached the rendezvous point, a secluded docking bay shrouded in shadows, Vrax greeted them with a toothy grin and a salute. "Took you long enough," the smuggler grumbled, his scaly green skin gleaming in the dim light. "Get aboard before someone notices you're missing." But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Just as they boarded the ship, alarms blared across the city. Red lights pulsed ominously, and the sound of approaching hovercrafts filled the air. Leora froze, her expression stricken. "They know," she whispered. "They've found us." "Not yet, they haven't," Vrax barked, already firing up the engines. "Strap yourselves in." The ship shot into the sky just as a squadron of Zorath enforcers descended upon the dock. Laser fire streaked past them, narrowly missing the hull as Vrax maneuvered with reckless precision. Inside the cramped cabin, Darius gripped Leora's hand tightly, offering silent reassurance even as dread clawed at his insides. Once they broke free of Zorath's atmosphere, the tension eased slightly, but only slightly. Leora stared out the viewport, tears streaming silently down her face as her homeworld faded into the distance. Darius wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "We'll figure this out," he promised, though his own confidence wavered. Running away might have been the easy part. Surviving whatever came next would be far more difficult. Their destination was a remote colony world called Arinder, located on the fringes of charted space. It was rumored to be a haven for outcasts, refugees, and those seeking freedom from oppressive regimes. As Vrax explained during the journey, the planet's harsh environment kept most interstellar powers at bay, making it an ideal hiding spot for fugitives like them. When they arrived, however, reality hit hard. Arinder was nothing like the idyllic sanctuary they'd imagined. The landscape was barren and desolate, dotted with crumbling structures left behind by failed colonization attempts. The few settlements that remained were rough-and-tumble affairs, populated by hardened individuals who eyed newcomers with suspicion. Still, Darius and Leora tried to make the best of it. They rented a tiny dwelling on the edge of one such settlement, scraping together credits earned from odd jobs. Darius worked as a mechanic, repairing rusted machinery for local miners, while Leora used her knowledge of botany to cultivate edible plants in the harsh soil. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy, like when Leora discovered a patch of wildflowers growing defiantly amidst the dust, or when Darius surprised her with a makeshift dinner cooked over an open flame. Yet trouble followed them even here. One evening, as they sat outside their home watching the twin moons rise, a group of armed men approached. Their leader, a burly human with a scar running down his cheek, sneered at them. "Heard rumors about some off-worlders stirring up trouble," he said, spitting on the ground. "Figured it was worth checking out." Darius stood protectively in front of Leora, his hand resting on the hilt of the utility knife strapped to his belt. "We're not looking for trouble," he replied evenly. "Just trying to live our lives." The man chuckled darkly. "Living ain't free around these parts. Pay up, or pack your bags." It quickly became clear that peace wouldn't come easily. Not here, not anywhere. And as tensions escalated, Darius realized that escaping societal judgment was only the beginning of their struggles. Forces beyond their control were closing in, threatening to tear apart everything they'd fought so hard to build. Back on Zorath, news of the princess's disappearance had sent shockwaves through the empire. Emperor Valin, Leora's father, was furious, not just because his daughter had fled, but because she had done so with a human. To the Zorath elite, such an alliance was unthinkable, a betrayal of their sacred traditions and racial purity laws. In response, the emperor dispatched a bounty hunter named Calyx, renowned for his ruthlessness and efficiency. With cybernetic enhancements and a reputation for leaving no trace of his targets, Calyx was the perfect choice to retrieve the runaway princess and eliminate any obstacles in his path. Calyx's ship landed on Arinder mere weeks after Darius and Leora's arrival. Disguised as a trader, he began gathering information about the couple, piecing together their movements and routines. What he didn't anticipate, however, was the fierce loyalty the settlers developed toward the young lovers. Word spread quickly among the colonists, warning Darius and Leora of the stranger asking questions. One night, as Calyx closed in on their location, Darius and Leora prepared for the worst. Armed with scavenged weapons and sheer determination, they fortified their home, knowing full well that survival depended on staying one step ahead. As the first shots rang out, breaking the stillness of the desert night, Darius turned to Leora, his expression grim but resolute. "Whatever happens," he said, "we face it together." And with that, the battle began, a desperate fight not just for their lives, but for the fragile future they dared to dream of. The night air crackled with energy as laser bolts seared through the darkness, illuminating the barren landscape in brief bursts of light. Darius crouched behind a makeshift barricade of scrap metal and stone, his heart pounding like a war drum. Beside him, Leora clutched a plasma rifle she'd barely learned to use, her hands trembling but determined. The sound of Calyx's heavy boots crunching against the dry earth grew closer, each step sending a fresh wave of dread coursing through them. "Stay low," Darius whispered, his voice tight with urgency. He popped up just long enough to fire off a shot, forcing Calyx to duck for cover behind a rusted mining vehicle. Sparks flew as the bounty hunter returned fire, his aim unervingly precise. Leora glanced at Darius, her wide eyes filled with fear but also something else, resolve. "We can't keep this up forever," she said, her voice steadier than he expected. "He'll outlast us." Darius nodded grimly. She was right. Even with their improvised defenses and the element of surprise, Calyx was a professional, an apex predator who thrived in chaos. They needed a plan, and fast. "What about the mines?" Leora asked suddenly, her gaze darting toward the jagged cliffs that loomed nearby. "There are tunnels beneath us. If we can lure him inside." Darius hesitated. The mines were treacherous, riddled with unstable shafts and toxic gases. But it was their only chance. "All right," he said finally. Let's do it. They executed their plan with desperate precision. Darius fired wildly from their position, drawing Calyx further into the open while Leora slipped away unnoticed, circling around to set traps along the mine entrance. When the bounty hunter advanced again, they retreated strategically, leading him straight into the labyrinthine tunnels. Inside, the air grew thick and stale, carrying the metallic tang of ancient machinery left to decay. The flickering glow of bioluminescent fungi cast eerie shadows on the walls, making every movement seem like a threat. Darius and Leora moved silently, their footsteps muffled by layers of dust and grit. Behind them, Calyx stalked relentlessly, his cybernetic enhancements giving him an almost supernatural ability to track their movements. As they reached a narrow passage, Leora triggered one of the traps, a rigged support beam that collapsed part of the ceiling, sealing off the path behind them. Dust billowed in clouds, choking the air, but Calyx merely laughed, his voice echoing ominously through the tunnel. "You think rocks will stop me?" he called out, his tone mocking. "You're just delaying the inevitable." Darius clenched his jaw, refusing to let fear take hold. He grabbed Leora's hand and pulled her forward, deeper into the maze of tunnels. Every twist and turn felt like a gamble, every shadow a potential ambush. But then, ahead of them, they spotted a faint glimmer of light, a ventilation shaft that led to the surface. "This way," Darius urged, pulling her toward the opening. As they scrambled upward, climbing hand over hand through the narrow duct, they heard Calyx's enraged roar from below. He wasn't far behind. When they emerged onto the surface, gasping for breath under the cold light of Arinder's twin moons, Darius realized their reprieve would be short-lived. Calyx burst out of another exit moments later, his silhouette framed by the harsh glow of the moons. His mechanical arm shimmered menacingly as he raised it, aiming directly at them. "You've made this personal," Calyx growled, advancing slowly. "And now you'll pay." But before he could fire, a deafening roar split the night. From the edge of the cliffs, a massive creature emerged, a sand wyvern native to Arinder, its leathery wings spread wide and its glowing eyes locked onto the intruders. It let out another guttural cry, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Calyx froze, momentarily distracted. That was all the opening Darius needed. Grabbing a discarded explosive charge from his belt, he hurled it toward the bounty hunter, detonating it with a well-timed blast. The explosion sent Calyx sprawling backward, his armor scorched and smoking. "Run!" Darius shouted, grabbing Leora's hand once more. They sprinted across the rocky terrain as the sand wyvern descended upon Calyx, its claws tearing into the ground where the bounty hunter had stood moments before. For now, they were safe, but neither dared to celebrate. The fight had taken its toll, leaving them battered and exhausted. As they collapsed beneath the shelter of an abandoned outpost, Leora leaned her head against Darius's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't think we'd make it," she admitted softly. "We did," Darius replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "But he'll come back. People like him always do." Days passed in uneasy silence. Though Calyx hadn't returned, rumors began circulating among the settlers that Zorath enforcers were en route to Arinder, dispatched by Emperor Valin himself. Panic rippled through the colony, and many residents fled, fearing retribution from the Empire. Darius and Leora debated leaving as well, but escaping again felt futile. Wherever they went, danger seemed to follow. One evening, as they sat together outside their home, Leora broke the quiet with a question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. "Do you ever regret it? Running away, I mean." Darius turned to look at her, his expression softening. "Not for a second," he said without hesitation. "Being with you is worth every risk." She smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "Even if it means losing everything?" He hesitated, unsure how to answer. Before he could speak, however, a distant rumble caught their attention. Looking up, they saw ships descending from the sky, Zorath vessels, their sleek designs unmistakable against the starlit horizon. "They're here," Leora whispered, her voice hollow. Darius stood, his fists clenched. "Then we'll face them too." The Zorath enforcers landed in force, surrounding the settlement with an overwhelming display of power. Emperor Valin himself disembarked from the lead ship, his regal presence commanding immediate respect and fear. Accompanied by a retinue of elite guards, he strode purposefully toward Darius and Leora, who stood side by side, unyielding despite the odds. "Father," Leora said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't expect you to come yourself." Valrin's gaze was icy, his disappointment palpable. "You've shamed our family, Leora. Shamed our entire civilization. Did you truly believe you could defy tradition and escape consequence?" Before she could respond, Darius stepped forward, placing himself between her and the Emperor. "Your quarrel is with me," he declared boldly. "Leave her out of this." Valrin's lips curled into a sneer. "You presume to dictate terms to me, human? You are nothing more than an insect daring to dream above its station." Tension crackled in the air as the guards raised their weapons, ready to act on their emperor's command. But then, unexpectedly, a figure emerged from the crowd of settlers, Vrax, the smuggler who had helped them escape Zorath. In his hands, he held a device that pulsed with ominous energy. "If you want bloodshed, your majesty," Vrax said, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "then by all means proceed. But know this, activating those weapons will trigger a failsafe I installed in your fleet systems. You'll lose more than just pride today." Valrin's eyes narrowed, his composure faltering for the first time. "What nonsense is this?" "No nonsense," Vrax replied with a smirk. "Just a little insurance policy. Thought you might need reminding that not everyone bends knee to your empire." A tense standoff ensued, neither side willing to blink. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the settlers, emboldened by Vrax's defiance. Slowly, they began to form a protective barrier around Darius and Leora, their solidarity a testament to the bonds forged during their time on Arinder. For the first time, Valrin looked uncertain. Sensing weakness, Leora stepped forward, addressing her father directly. "Is this what you want, father? To destroy lives just to preserve your precious traditions? Or are you willing to listen, to consider that maybe love transcends borders and species?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Valrin stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he lowered his gaze. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "there is merit in questioning old ways." It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a start. And as the suns rose over Arinder, casting golden light across the desolate plains, Darius and Leora allowed themselves a moment of cautious hope. Their journey was far from over, but together, they believed they could forge a new path, one where love, not fear, defined their future. Just as the tension began to ease and hope flickered like a fragile flame, a sudden explosion rocked the settlement. Everyone turned toward the source, a massive plume of smoke rising from the outskirts where the Zorath ships were docked. Chaos erupted as alarms blared from the Imperial vessels, red lights flashing wildly. "What is this?" Emperor Valrin bellowed, his composure shattering once more. His guards scrambled to assess the damage, but before anyone could react, a new voice cut through the confusion. "Sorry to crash the party," came a smug drawl. Emerging from the haze was Calyx, his cybernetic arm gleaming ominously despite the soot staining his armor. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a group of mercenaries, their weapons trained on the crowd. "Looks like we've got unfinished business." Darius's stomach sank. The bounty hunter hadn't been defeated in the mines, he'd been regrouping, gathering reinforcements. And now, with the Zorath fleet crippled and the settlers caught off guard, they were completely vulnerable. Calyx smirked, his eyes locking onto Darius and Leora. "You two have caused me a lot of trouble. Time to settle the score." Before anyone could move, Leora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "If you want us, you'll have to go through everyone here." The settlers, emboldened by her defiance, tightened their formation around the couple. For a moment, it seemed like unity might prevail, but then another twist unfolded. One of the settlers, a man who had always been friendly to Darius and Leora, lowered his weapon and stepped aside. "I'm sorry," he muttered, avoiding their gaze. "But I can't risk my family for this fight." As if his betrayal opened the floodgates, others began to waver. The line of defense crumbled, leaving Darius and Leora exposed. Betrayal stung sharper than any blade, and for the first time, doubt crept into their hearts. Calyx laughed cruelly. Love doesn't win wars, kids. It just gets people killed. With no options left, Darius grabbed Leora's hand. Then let's make sure it's worth dying for. And with that, they charged, not toward escape, but straight at Calyx, determined to take him down even if it cost them everything. The world seemed to slow as Darius and Leora sprinted toward Calyx, their movements fueled by desperation and defiance. The mercenaries raised their weapons, but in the chaos of the moment, the settlers who had initially faltered now surged forward again, unwilling to let the couple face death alone. Rocks flew, crude tools became makeshift weapons, and shouts filled the air as the colonists clashed with the mercenaries. Calyx sneered at the commotion but kept his focus on Darius and Leora. His cybernetic arm whirred as he activated a hidden blade, its edge gleaming menacingly under the flickering light of the burning ships. "You're brave," he said coldly, "but bravery won't save you." Darius didn't respond. Instead, he feinted left, drawing Calyx's attention while Leora darted around him, her plasma rifle firing wildly. One shot grazed Calyx's shoulder, forcing him to stumble back. He growled in frustration, swiping at her with his blade, but she managed to dodge just in time. "Stay close," Darius shouted, positioning himself between Leora and Calyx. They fought side by side, their movements synchronized despite the odds stacked against them. But for every blow they landed, Calyx retaliated with brutal efficiency, his mechanical enhancements giving him an edge neither could match. Meanwhile, Emperor Valin watched the scene unfold from a distance, his expression unreadable. The betrayal among the settlers, coupled with the destruction of his fleet, left him visibly shaken. Yet instead of ordering his guards to intervene, he remained silent, his mind clearly wrestling with conflicting emotions. As the battle raged on, Vrax reappeared, wielding a stolen disruptor cannon scavenged from one of the damaged Zorath ships. With a wicked grin, he aimed it directly at Calyx. "Hey, Tin Man!" he called out. "Catch this!" The blast sent Calyx flying backward, his body slamming into the wreckage of a nearby ship. Smoke rose from his scorched armor, but even then, the bounty hunter struggled to rise, his determination unyielding. Before he could recover fully, however, another figure emerged from the shadows. Princess Nyxera, Leora's estranged older sister. Nyxera was everything Leora wasn't, ruthless, calculating, and fiercely loyal to the Empire. She strode forward with an air of authority, flanked by a squad of elite enforcers. Her gaze swept over the battlefield, lingering briefly on her father before settling on Leora. "Enough," Nyxera commanded, her voice cutting through the noise like a whip. "This ends now." For a moment, everyone froze. Even Calyx paused, bloodied and battered, to assess the new arrival. Leora stared at her sister, shock written across her face. "Nyxera, what are you doing here?" "I came to bring you home," Nyxera replied coolly, though there was a flicker of something softer in her eyes, a hint of regret perhaps or guilt. "But I see that might not be possible anymore." Before anyone could respond, a deafening roar echoed across the landscape. The sand wyvern from earlier had returned, drawn by the commotion. It swooped down, scattering both mercenaries and settlers alike. In the ensuing panic, Nyxera seized the opportunity to approach Leora and Darius. "You've made your choice," she said quietly, her tone almost sympathetic. "But know this, the Empire will never stop hunting you. Not unless—" she hesitated, glancing at their intertwined hands. "Not unless you give them a reason to." Leora frowned. "What do you mean?" Nyxera leaned closer, lowering her voice so only they could hear. "Prove that your bond is stronger than tradition. Show them what love can achieve, not just for yourselves, but for others. Change their minds, Leora. Or else all of this will have been for nothing." Her words hung heavy in the air as she stepped back, raising her voice once more. "Fall back," she ordered her troops. "We're done here." With that, Nyxera turned and walked away, leaving behind a stunned silence. Slowly, the remaining enforcers followed her lead, retreating to the remaining functional ships. Calyx, too injured to protest, allowed his mercenaries to drag him along, casting one final venomous glare at Darius and Leora before disappearing into the night. When the dust finally settled, the settlers gathered around the couple, offering quiet support. Though battered and bruised, Darius and Leora stood tall, their resolve unbroken. They had survived yet another trial, but Nyxora's parting words lingered, planting a seed of uncertainty in their hearts. Was survival enough? Or did they need to fight for something greater? To challenge not just their enemies, but the very foundations of a society that sought to tear them apart? As dawn broke over Arinder, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Darius looked at Leora, his expression resolute. "If we're going to change anything," he said softly, "we'll have to start somewhere." She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. Together, they faced the horizon, ready to take the first step toward a future where love wasn't just an act of rebellion, but a beacon of hope. Months passed on Arinder, and though the scars of battle remained etched into the land, and in their hearts, Darius and Leora began to rebuild not just their lives, but also the fragile community around them. The settlers who had once wavered in their loyalty now stood firmly by their side, inspired by the couple's unwavering courage. Slowly, they transformed the desolate colony into a thriving haven, a place where outcasts and dreamers could find refuge. But the fight wasn't over. Nyxora's parting words echoed in Leora's mind every day. "Prove that your bond is stronger than tradition." It became clear to both her and Darius that running away wasn't enough. They needed to confront the prejudices that had driven them from Zorath head-on, to show their people, and themselves, that love could transcend barriers far greater than species or societal norms. With Vrax's help, they devised a plan. Using salvage technology and Leora's knowledge of Zorath diplomacy, they created a secure communication channel to broadcast a message directly to the citizens of Zorath Prime, not just the elites, but the common folk as well. In it, Leora spoke openly about her journey, sharing stories of her life with Darius and the struggles they faced together. She didn't shy away from the pain of exile, nor did she paint herself as a victim. Instead, she framed their story as one of hope, a testament to the power of unity and understanding. The response was overwhelming. Across Zorath, debates erupted in homes, marketplaces, and council chambers. Some condemned the princess for shaming her family, while others hailed her as a symbol of change. For the first time in centuries, the rigid hierarchy of Zorath society began to crack under the weight of its own contradictions. Emperor Valin watched these developments with quiet unease. Though he had always valued tradition above all else, even he couldn't ignore the growing unrest among his people. When Nyxora approached him with an idea, a royal summit to address the issue, he reluctantly agreed. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps it was the realization that clinging to the past would only lead to further division. Either way, the wheels of change were set in motion. The summit took place on neutral ground, a lush moon orbiting Zorath, known for its breathtaking gardens and serene atmosphere. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness what many believed would be a historic moment. At the center of it all stood Darius and Leora, hand in hand, facing the Emperor and his council. Valrin's expression was unreadable as he addressed the assembly. "My daughter has chosen a path that defies our laws and traditions," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "For years, I saw this as betrayal. But now—" He paused, glancing at Leora, who met his gaze without flinching. "I see that her choice was not made out of rebellion, but out of love." A murmur rippled through the crowd. No one had expected such an admission from the stoic ruler. Valin continued, his tone softening. "Love is not weakness, it is strength. And if we are to endure as a civilization, we must learn to embrace it in all its forms." Tears welled up in Leora's eyes as her father stepped down from the podium and walked toward her. For the first time in years, he embraced her, his arms trembling with emotion. "Forgive me, my child," he whispered. "You have taught me more than I ever thought possible." The room erupted in applause, and when Darius stepped forward to formally ask for Leora's hand in marriage, with the Emperor's blessing, the cheers grew deafening. Even Nyxora, standing off to the side, allowed herself a small smile. Though she had always been the dutiful heir, she felt a sense of pride knowing her sister had paved the way for a brighter future. Their wedding was held on Arinder, beneath the twin moons that had witnessed so much of their struggle. Settlers and dignitaries alike came from across the galaxy to celebrate the union of two souls who had dared to defy the odds. The ceremony was simple yet profound, filled with laughter, music, and tears of joy. As Darius slipped the ring onto Leora's finger, a delicate band forged from stardust-infused metal, she leaned in to kiss him, sealing their promise to each other forever. In the years that followed, their love blossomed into something even greater. They welcomed twins into their lives, a boy named Kalen, after the Sand Wyvern, and a girl named Ceres, whose laughter echoed through the halls of their home. Together, they worked tirelessly to foster peace between humans, Zorath, and countless other species, proving that coexistence was not only possible but beautiful. Arinder flourished under their leadership, becoming a beacon of hope for those seeking freedom and acceptance. Its people thrived, united by shared dreams rather than divided by fear. And though challenges still arose, Darius and Leora faced them together, their bond stronger with each passing day. As they sat together one evening, watching their children play beneath the shimmering moons, Leora rested her head on Darius's shoulder. "Do you remember that night when you said we'd figure it out?" she asked softly. He smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "I do. I meant every word." She kissed his cheek, her eyes shining with gratitude and love. "We did more than figure it out, Darius. We changed the stars." And so, their love story became legend, a tale told across galaxies, inspiring generations to come. It was proof that even in the darkest of times, light could prevail. All it took was courage, determination, and the belief that love could conquer all.